Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indie Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indie Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indies Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indies Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, stream the show there as well. You can also listen on that Indie Sports Ticket app. You can also listen to the Dan Dockett Show on the Indie Sports Ticket app from noon to 3. I know he's going to have thoughts after last night's game. And usually I come in the morning and I'm just overjoyed to do this show because I love doing the show. I love interacting with you and the rest of the people that listen to the show about all the awesome, amazing things that are happening in the world of Indianapolis sports because we've been on quite a run. Caitlin Clark and the Fever is always interesting. Rip It On Ballard and the Colts is always fun. But the pinnacle of it all has been this Indiana Pacers run to the NBA Finals. And usually I'm filled with joy talking about this Pacers team because they're so much fun. This is the first time, and granted, I haven't been doing a show very long. This is the first time I've had to open a show, and I just feel sad and a little crushed. You know, I can still feel that same feeling that I had in my chest when Tyrese Haliburton went down last night after probably tearing his Achilles. I don't think there's an official report out yet, but you've seen the replay 37 million times because ESPN just kept showing it over and over and over again. And every time they showed it, you're like, oh, man, his Achilles, that's brutal. And then they would cut to his face, and he's pounding the floor, and he's yelling, no, no, no. And it just, you just get punched again whenever they make the cut to that. And it's just sad because Tyrese Haliburton has had this incredible run. Game 5, round 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks. He crosses over Giannis, finishes at the rim, game winner, capping off a crazy comeback. And then in the second round, they're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it's game 2. Pacers are kind of, it's like, they're going to lose. It's going to be 1-1. No, they're not. Halliburton's going to miss a free throw, grab the offensive rebound, hit a tough step-back 3 on Ty Jerome to put the Pacers up 2-0. And then you fast forward to the Knicks series, and it's game 1, and Aaron Nesmith's hitting a million threes. And then it's Tyrese Haliburton hitting a really tough sprint away from the rim, turn around, hit the heel of the rim, bounce straight up in the air, and come back down and go in to force overtime. And he's doing the choke sign. And then game 1 against the Thunder, he does it again. Pull-up jumper from 20 feet. Money. Pacers win game 1. And going into the series, it really didn't feel like the Pacers had much of a chance. And then he makes that shot. And it's like, oh, they got one. And this playoff run has been filled with Tyrese Haliburton moment after Tyrese Haliburton moment. You're like, wow, I don't think he can top that. And then he does. And last night, it felt like we were going to see it again. It felt like we were going to see Tyrese Haliburton go for like 30 points and 12 assists and no turnovers and really put this Pacers team on his back and go win the game for him. He was aggressive from the jump, getting into the lane. He didn't have any assists in the 7 minutes that he played, but the way with which he was playing, the aggressive style, getting into the lane, kicking the ball out, doing the things that you just kind of expect for Tyrese Haliburton to do, it was going to be a big assist night for him. And then you throw in the fact that he started 3 of 4 from 3. Tyrese Haliburton played 7 minutes last night, and he made more threes than anyone else who played in that game. He scored 9 points on 5 shots in the first 7 minutes of that game. Dude was on pace for 40. Was he going to get 40? Probably not, because that's not his style of play. But it felt like we weren't just going to get another Tyrese Haliburton 2025 NBA playoffs moment. It felt like we were going to get the moments of the 2025 NBA playoffs. A moment that exceeded all of the game winners. We were in for a big Tyrese Haliburton night. And you could just kind of feel it. Like the Thunder came out, and it didn't look like they had the same level of juice as the Pacers. You know, Aaron Nesmith diving on the floor for loose balls. Pascal Siakam really energetic. Tyrese Haliburton yelling things I can't say on the radio at the crowd after the first Thunder timeout. And then at the 4:55 mark in the first quarter, Tyrese Haliburton tears his Achilles. Likely, that's still not officially reported, but, you know, we've all seen the video. We've seen enough guys tear their Achilles to know what it looks like. And when they show the slow-mo replay and you just see it snap all the way up his leg and you see his reaction to it, it's just sad. And that's really the only way to describe how I felt. And watching the game, it seemed like no one really knew how to feel about it. It felt like when he went down, the energy of the building just went down with him. The air got sucked out pretty quickly on the road. Because, like, you know, you're a Thunder fan, a Pacer fan, whatever. Like, you know how significant Tyrese Haliburton is to everything that the Indiana Pacers do. And he goes down, and then the game just felt really weird. It felt like the energy level from the players, with the exception of Pascal Siakam and Aaron Nesmith, went down. Guys weren't really diving on the floor for loose balls. The game just felt hazy. And maybe that's just a reflection of me and how I felt after it happened. Because honestly, outside of the Andrew Nembhard step back three, you know, to close the first half, I don't really remember much of what else happened after the Tyrese Haliburton injury. It was such a big deal. And I just, you know, it happens, and it felt like Mike Tyson punched me in the stomach. And sad is really the only word. Sad, disappointed, and very few times in sports do things happen that emit that reaction from the majority of people. And it sucks, but it's part of sports, sadly, part of life as well. Hopefully, Tyrese Haliburton's okay. Coach Carlisle, you know, he wasn't even asked about Haliburton. He opened with a statement congratulating the Oklahoma City Thunder and the rest of their team and organization. And then, you know, he talked for about a minute here about Tyrese Haliburton and his impact and just the kind of guy he is and what it was like to see him go down. So here's Coach Carlisle talking about Tyrese Haliburton last night after the Game 7 loss.
What happened with Tyrese is just all of our hearts dropped, but he will be back. I don't have any medical information about what may or may not have happened, but he'll be back in time. And, you know, I believe he'll make a full recovery. So he authored one of the great individual playoff runs in the history of the NBA with dramatic play after dramatic play. It was just something that no one's ever seen. And did it as one of 17. You know, that's the beautiful thing about him. As great a player as he is, it's always a team thing. And so our hearts go out to him, but so proud of everyone. And
Coach Carlisle right there talking about Tyrese Haliburton and the gut-wrenching injury that happened to him last night. It's, you know, I'm 99% sure that he tore or ruptured his Achilles. He's going to be out for a full year. And it sucks because the Eastern Conference isn't going to be very good again next year. And after Tyrese Haliburton got hurt, the game just felt weird. And the toughest thing about it, I think, is the start. Like, if he starts 0-4 from 3, and he's like super passive. And it's one of those nights where it feels like he doesn't have it, because there are nights with Tyrese Haliburton. We've witnessed them in the NBA Finals. Zero made field goals in Game 5, if I remember that correctly. He had the pitiful game against the Cavaliers, and he had a game against the Bucks where he wasn't very impactful, and against the Knicks, he had a game where he wasn't very good. Like we've seen games like this from him throughout the playoffs. And it clearly wasn't going to be one of those nights, because Tyrese Haliburton is the kind of player that rises to the occasion time and time again. And he was about to rise to the occasion on the biggest stage in basketball. I would argue the second biggest stage in sports, behind, obviously, the Super Bowl. And you watch the rest of that game, and the Thunder only managed to score 103 points. They only shot 40% from the field. Like, the Pacers defense, I thought, was really good last night. And it just kind of feels like the Pacers win that game if Tyrese Haliburton plays, which makes it so much tougher. Like if it had been a night where, the Thunder made 1,000,000 threes and Lou Dort is just, hitting crazy shots, which, I mean, he hit one, just the crazy fadeaway there late. Then maybe the feeling's different. But it's not. And it sucks. And yeah, I just, Ross Campbell, who watches the show on YouTube, what feels like every day, which I'm very appreciative of him doing. He said that, well, let me pull it up here. He said, I'm not sure we'll ever get over that one. And it feels like that right now. Just, it's so hard to get to this point. So hard to win games in the playoffs. And to have one feel like it was stolen from you because of that is really tough. With that being said, Tyrese Haliburton knew the risks. He said it point blank. He was like, I know what the risks are of playing with this injury. And it's the NBA Finals. So I have to go out and play. And that is the right response. And, we're going to get a bunch of Twitter doctors and sports media doctors and all this kind of stuff, evaluating whether or not he should have played and all these things. Like, I don't know enough to say whether or not he should have or should not have played. He should have, because it's the finals. And when you have an opportunity to play in the NBA Finals, you don't sit out if you can play. Ridger asking on the YouTube chat, once again, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there, be part of the chat and be part of the show. Ridger asking, John, do we sign Miles Turner now knowing what we know? Yes, we do, or they do, for the same amount of money, because you're going to sign him, for 4 or 5 years. He's 29 right now. Let's say that they sign him for 4 years, so he'll be 34 at the end of it. Because if you're the Pacers now, you're not looking at next year. Like, you are, because obviously you have to put a team on the floor and all that kind of stuff, but you're not winning a title without Tyrese Haliburton. Like, it's not happening. And so you're not looking 1 year down the road. You're looking 2 years down the road. And in 2 years, Miles Turner is going to be 31. The back end of his prime. In 3 years, 32. Like, he will be, still a really good player, 2, 3, 4 years from now when Tyrese Haliburton is back playing basketball again. So the Pacers absolutely sign Miles Turner. I'm going to get into this next point a little bit more here later, but the Pacers are going to really be able to evaluate their roster this next season. I don't want to move on too quickly from the NBA Finals and everything that happened last night. So just really quickly, just looking at next season, they're going to be able to sit back and really kind of evaluate their roster, because in 2 years, the roster is going to look different. TJ McConnell's going to be 34, 35, somewhere in there. Pascal Siakam, I believe, is going to be 33, 34, kind of somewhere in there. Which is, it's not old, but it's older. And, Obi Toppin is probably going to want to get paid at some point during that stretch. Benedict Mathurin's going to want to get paid at some point during that stretch. What does Jarris Walker look like? So the Pacers are going to have a full season to sit back and look at the roster and answer this question of who do we want around 2 years from now? when they try to make another run at this, when Tyrese Haliburton is back and healthy, I do think that they're going to want Miles Turner around for another playoff run. And look, he's going to get buried by Pacer fans. I'm not going to do it. He was the starting center on a team that went to the NBA Finals. He had some really good moments throughout the playoffs. There are games and stretches where the Pacers do not win without him. And I talked about it last week. I think center has to be done by committee now. Paul Reed would love him to be a Pacer next year because that's really what the Pacers need. I don't think the issue was Miles Turner. I think the issue was they just didn't have enough different options at center. Thomas Bryant, every time he stepped out on the floor, my next question was, when can we get him off the floor? Same goes for Tony Bradley. So I don't think that Miles Turner was the issue in the series. The issue is they turned the basketball over way too much, and they didn't rebound. It's really that simple. And when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to talk about it. There's one thing in particular last night that when it happened, it just kind of felt like the Pacers lost the game. When this stretch happened, it felt like the game was over. And this is after the Haliburton injury. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, maybe you're listening on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. The Indiana Pacers lost what was the score again? It's just brutal. The loss last night, 103-91. And the third quarter, that was the issue. Pacers going to halftime up by 1, 48-47. Haliburton goes down, and, seemed like everyone didn't know what to do except for the Pacers. They just kept playing because that's what this Indiana Pacers team has done all year. Like, they just keep playing their game. They keep moving. They keep rotating the basketball around. They, continue to communicate and switch and play good defense, no matter the circumstance, whether they're up 30, down 30, their best players playing, their best players not playing, no matter what. The Pacers and their ability to just keep going, no matter what is happening around them, is why they were as good as they were this year. And while everyone's feeling sad and their stomachs are in knots and it's not great and Haliburton's hurt, the Pacers just kept playing to a point where they're up 48-47 going into halftime. And you're like, all right. They can outplay the Thunder without Tyrese Haliburton for 24 minutes. It's going to take a great Pascal Siakam game. There's going to have to be some timely threes. TJ McConnell is going to have to play really well. And none of that happened in the third quarter. That, to me, is where the game was lost. That's where the game was lost. The Pacers were outscored 34-20 in the third quarter. And it just came down to possessions. The Pacers have lost games in this series, not because the Thunder have run better offense, not because the Thunder have played better defense. The Pacers have lost games in this series because of possessions. In the third quarter, the possession difference was 15. The Pacers turned the basketball over 8 times in the third quarter. And they gave up 7 offensive rebounds in the third quarter. That is 15 extra possessions for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Off of those 8 Indiana Pacer turnovers, the Oklahoma City Thunder scored 18 points. And that is where the game was lost. You're up 1 at the start of the third quarter, and the Thunder come out, and they throw a pretty big punch. They're scoring. They're pressuring up. Lou Dort hits a stupid double clutch, end of the shot clock 3 from 30 feet out. Goes in, and it's like, okay, here we go. Is this kind of the moment where the Pacers are going to get ran over a bit? Can they withstand this, right hook that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to throw here at the start of the third quarter? And then Pascal Siakam comes down and he hits a 3 from the left wing. And it seemed like in the moment, I wrote down, that's the shot that should settle the Pacers in. And it did not. Things did not get better after Pascal Siakam hit that left wing 3. The turnovers continued to happen. And meanwhile, the Thunder didn't turn the basketball over once in that third quarter. And you can't make mistakes against teams that are better than you. And 8 turnovers and 7 offensive rebounds allowed in that third quarter. That is where the game got away from the Pacers, because when you give a team that's better than you 15 extra possessions, no matter how well you play, you're probably not going to win that game. The Pacers turned the basketball over 23 times last night. And when Haliburton went down, I wrote down in my notes, can the Pacers hold on to the basketball enough without him? Because that's really his superpower. Like, he's a great playmaker. He makes amazing passes. But more importantly, against this Thunder team, Tyrese Haliburton did not turn the basketball over at the same rate as everybody else. And so when he went out, that was the question. Can the Pacers hold on to the basketball enough to win this game? And the answer was no. And here's the thing. If they had just closed possessions with defensive rebounds, then they would have been fine. Even with turning the basketball over 8 times, giving up 18 points off of those turnovers, if they could have just closed possessions with rebounds, they would have been, they would have had a chance. They would have had a chance, and they just couldn't do it. Just a brutal game. The Pacers actually out-rebounded the Thunder. That doesn't feel right. But, I think a lot of those rebounds came late. That third quarter was just absolutely brutal. The Oklahoma City Thunder ended up taking 17 more shots than the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers, once again, shot a higher percentage from the field than the Thunder and lost. I believe that's the third time in this series that happened, and really tough to win when you allow your opponent to take 17 more shots than you do. It is. It's also really tough to win when TJ McConnell is your best scorer, and the broadcast just, raving about TJ McConnell, because he's scoring all these points and he's doing all these TJ McConnell things where he's getting into the lane and he's finishing and he's taking dudes one-on-one and he's operating on the baseline like he's Steve Nash, and he scored a lot of points. He was he wasn't. It was Mathurin, but he scored a lot. Right? 16 points, 8 of 13 from the field, pulled down 6 rebounds. But he turned the basketball over 7 times. And I'm really torn on how to feel about the TJ McConnell performance, because the Pacers needed him to score. Like, that had to happen. But you can't turn the ball over 7 times. It's too many. And a lot of them came in that third quarter when the Thunder extended their lead. And it's just brutal. Brutal. I felt bad for him. There's a video of him crying after the game, and good for his mom shooing the camera away. But he didn't play his best game, and that's to be expected. Like, we saw last night why TJ McConnell's backup. Love the dude. I hope he's a Pacer for forever. But we saw why you can't play him 28 minutes last night. He's a great scorer, but 15 minutes of TJ McConnell is plenty. I think we saw that last night. 15 minutes of TJ McConnell is plenty. Once you go over those 15 minutes, it just gets really rough, because there's this great version of TJ McConnell, which we saw, right, where he scores 8 points on 4 possessions, and he's getting to the rim, and he got fouled on like 3 of those, and the officials didn't call it, and that was really frustrating. But that's like the peak version of TJ McConnell. And then we also saw the version of TJ McConnell that dribbles into trouble. Like, bringing the ball up the sideline. Look, no one should have set a screen when he was standing there, because the trap becomes really easy. But like, you can't do that. Like, that's dribbling into a bad spot. And that's the downside of McConnell. He dribbles the ball into bad spots sometimes, and when he does, he tends to turn it over. Hence the 7 turnovers last night. I liked the Benedict Mathurin minutes. He gave me some hope there, because with 4 minutes and 11 seconds left, the Thunder were out of timeouts, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 5 fouls. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fouls out, what does this Thunder team look like? And Benedict Mathurin keeps getting to the rim, and he's scoring, and he's getting fouled, and he's going to the foul line, and he's making his free throws, and he's got 24 points. And, a 12-point lead with a little over 4 minutes left is not insurmountable by any stretch of the imagination. Okay? Like, I mean, that is a very doable lead, to say the least, especially for this Pacers team that we've seen come back time and time again throughout these playoffs. And, Benedict Mathurin gave us some hope there. I'm very intrigued to see what he looks like this next season, when he's going to get a lot more opportunity on the offensive end of the floor with, Tyrese Haliburton not playing next year. So it'll be interesting. Coach Carlisle was asked about Mathurin after the game, just about his impact on the game last night and how he thought he did in his first playoff run. Here's Coach Carlisle talking about Pacers guard Benedict Mathurin.
He's a fighter, and that's one of the reasons he was the first guy in the game tonight. I knew we needed him, and these moments are moments that he really lives for as a competitor. He's talked about it. I've seen it. This is one of those physical types of games where you got to have pit bulls out there figuring out ways to get the ball in the basket, get to the free throw line, get stops. Was really proud of how he fought from start to finish.
He did fight, and he is a pit bull. Coach Carlisle right there talking about Pacers guard Benedict Mathurin. And the ending there, I thought really showed who this Pacers team is. They just keep playing. And, with a little over 4 minutes left, you felt like there was just a little bit of a chance. Like I remember I'm sitting there on my couch with my wife, and she's like paying attention, but she's also crocheting. And she's like, it's only like a 12-point game. And I'm like, you're a stop and a 3 away, from it being a 9-point game. And then things get a little tight for the Thunder. But that 3 just never really came after shooting the ball really well in that first half. 8 of 16 from 3 for the Pacers in that first half. They only made 3 threes in the second half. They just didn't shoot the ball nearly as well. And look, if you're going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder and you're going to turn the ball over 23 times and you're not going to have your best player on the floor, then, you've got to absolutely light it up from 3. They didn't do that. The Thunder made just as many threes as the Pacers did. And as soon as Haliburton went out, you knew that Pascal Siakam was going to have to be great. And you knew that the Pacers were going to have to find a way to make some 3-point shots. And neither one of those things happened. I'm going to talk about Siakam here in a minute. By the way, Jared Dubin is set to join the show coming up at 11 o'clock to talk about the game last night, to talk about the playoffs as a whole. And we'll get into Haliburton a little bit more and everything, that kind of comes with that. By the way, after that interview, we're going to give away tickets to Holiday World. Today's show is brought to you by Holiday World. Love that place. Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Go make some great memories. They've actually got some awesome stuff coming up. So now through August 3rd, you can catch Holidays in the Sky drone show and fireworks spectacular. Celebrate this 4th of July holiday at Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Enjoy thrilling the rides all day long. Then stick around to watch the fireworks show and the Sky drone show. It's going to be awesome, right? You can catch that now through August 3rd. We're actually going to give away tickets to Holiday World again after the Jared Dubin interview, so probably sometime around between 11:20 and 11:30. That's probably what you're looking at, so make sure you're tuned into the show then for your chance to win some Holiday World tickets. Now, Pacers, as I was saying, Siakam had to be great in the second half. He wasn't, and they had to make some threes. They didn't really do that either. I am going to talk about Siakam a little bit. I've been pretty tough on him throughout these playoffs. He has these long stretches where he just kind of disappears. And we had that last night, but it was different from all the other times that we've seen him disappear throughout these playoffs. And I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there, subscribe, and be part of the chat. That way you can be part of the show. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there and watch the stream there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. You can listen to the Dan Dockett Show on that app as well from noon to 3, no matter where you're at. And Pascal Siakam is a guy that I've, not ripped, but been pretty tough on, I think, throughout these playoffs, just throughout the regular season. He would just have these stretches where he disappeared. Like he'd be on the floor for like 7 straight minutes, and you'd be like, Siakam was in for 7 minutes? I didn't realize it. Even when he scored, like you would just completely and totally miss it because he just didn't feel very impactful. And last night, Tyrese Haliburton goes down with, 4 minutes and 55 seconds left to go in that first quarter. And you, as soon as it happened, it's like, all right, Pacers are going to have to make a lot of threes. The Thunder are going to have to miss a lot of threes. And Pascal Siakam, he's got to be awesome. And I thought he was pretty decent in the first half. He goes into the break with, 10 points on 3 of 7 shooting. I thought he was good on both ends of the floor. Jalen Williams wasn't very good in game 6 or 7, and it's because the Pacers made a switch. They put Pascal Siakam on him a little bit more, and the length and the athleticism of Siakam gave Jalen Williams some issues. And we saw it in the first half. Like, they went with that matchup again, and it went really well for the Pacers. Jalen Williams goes into halftime 2 of 7 from the field, only 5 points. It's like, all right, Siakam's gonna have to defend at that level in the second half, and he's gonna have to score a whole bunch if the Pacers are gonna have any sort of chance at coming out of this on top. He was plus 10 at half. That was a game high. Plus 10 going into halftime. He finished the game -4. He was -14 in the second half, and part of that is because Tyrese Haliburton wasn't playing, and all those things, and stuff just becomes harder for him when Haliburton's not on the floor, right? Like we saw last night, why Tyrese Haliburton is their best player. There's just more space. The offense is more efficient. There were a lot of no-pass possessions for the Pacers in that second half, and that's what you want when you're playing the Pacers. You don't want them moving the ball and doing all the great things that they do, with the ball movement, with the cutting and the passing and the screening. And they just kind of got out of their offensive flow, and it wasn't because Pascal Siakam had the ball. And that's problematic. That guy has to have the ball consistently if Tyrese Haliburton isn't in the game. And I don't think that it was a normal, Pascal Siakam's just not really involved thing. I think he tried to be involved. I think when he caught the ball, he looked up and saw 5 defenders looking at him time and time again. And what do you want him to do? Dribble into 3 people? That's not what I want him to do, because if you dribble into 3 OKC defenders, then you're probably going to turn the basketball over. And I thought the Pacers could have done a better job of running stuff for him. I thought that the Pacers looked him off a little bit too often. He'd have Cason Wallace or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or fill in the blank with any other smaller Oklahoma City defender on him. And they were like, no, we're good. We're not going to make this post-entry pass. Instead, we're going to give it to TJ McConnell and let him run around for 20 seconds, and he's either going to score or he's going to turn the basketball over again. That's what it felt like the Pacers' offense was in the second half. Pascal Siakam only took 6 shots in the second half, less than the number that he took in the first half. Like, that was immediately a bad sign, because as soon as Tyrese Haliburton went down, look, you knew that Siakam was going to have to put up like 20 shots and probably score 30 if the Pacers were going to have any sort of chance at winning last night. And he didn't. He scored 16 points. That was it. That's just, that's just not enough from him if you're not going to have Tyrese Haliburton alongside him. He only played 37 minutes. That was a little frustrating. I think Coach Carlisle did an incredible job throughout these playoffs. He pressed every right button. He made every substitute was the right substitute. Every timeout he called seemed to be at the right time. He had some big challenges that went the Pacers' way, throughout the playoffs as well. And as soon as Haliburton got hurt, I thought we were going to see like a 43-minute Pascal Siakam night. I thought we were going to see, all right, Siakam, we condition all year. It's the last game of the season. You've got to lay it all out there. And you're going to have to play 43 minutes at this breakneck pace that the Pacers like to play at. And he only played 37, which felt like a bit of a mistake. I think part of why the game got away from the Pacers in that third quarter is because he sat for half of the third quarter. And you knew that in the minutes where Siakam and Haliburton, where neither one of them were on the floor, it was going to be really tough sledding for this Pacer offense. Even though, TJ McConnell was good for some of that stretch, like it wasn't enough. And I thought that, Coach Carlisle was going to try to sit him a little bit longer in that third quarter and then let him play the rest of the fourth. That obviously didn't work, and they end up going down. They end up being down by 11 going into the fourth quarter because of that. So just kind of disappointed. I wish that Siakam had been on the floor a little bit more than he was. 37 minutes on a night where Tyrese Haliburton isn't out there. It's just really tough. That's I feel like he should have played a little bit more than what he did. But yeah, tough stuff there. Tough night for Obi Toppin. He didn't score. He had 0 points in 20 minutes, only 2 rebounds. Like the stuff that Obi Toppin had done well all series, make shots and rebound. He didn't do either one of those things last night. 21 minutes, my bad, instead of 20. And you saw why role players are role players last night. I mean, seriously, like that's what you saw. Like when they were asked to do more than what their role is, they struggled. Obi Toppin was, bad last night. 0-4 from the field. When he goes from being the third best offensive player on the floor to the second best, because, that's what he was for certain periods there. It wasn't good. He took some bad shots. He only took 4 shots in those 21 minutes. He wasn't soaring over everybody. Like I felt like in the first 6 games of the series, you could feel the impact from Obi Toppin consistently. Like you knew he was on the floor because he was running and he was finishing at the rim and he was jumping up over everybody, using his athleticism to rebound, and he was making threes, and you didn't get any of that last night. And sometimes it's important to lie. And he probably should have lied in this clip when he was asked about the Tyrese Haliburton injury.
We need a tie out there, and he's been good for us all year. And for him to go down, getting a game like that, it's like it sucked the soul out of us. I ain't gonna say out of everybody, but I don't want to feel like I played good because I was thinking about it the whole day, and I felt like it was my fault. So,
Obi Toppin right there saying that he felt like he didn't play well because he was thinking about Haliburton the whole game. And I want to sympathize, and I want to be nice and say, hey, man, like, I get it. That's tough. The reason why he felt like it was his fault, he's the one who passed the ball to Tyrese when the injury happened. And I kind of get it. It's tough to see your guy go down. And with that being said, you've got to move on. It's hard. Like, it's a really tough thing to say. It's a tough thing to do. But, I mean, TJ McConnell moved on. Benedict Mathurin moved on. Andrew Nembhard moved on. Pascal Siakam moved on. The only guy who didn't was Obi Toppin, and he wasn't very good. And it's just it's a tough thing to say. It's a tough thing to be like, forget about what happened to your teammate and probably one of your really good friends that you've been playing with for the last 2 years now. Just forget about it, move on, and go play basketball. Like, that is not an easy thing to do, but that's what you have to do. Like, you have to be a pro in that moment. So, you know what? This sucks. I feel terrible for Tyrese, and I hate that I'm the one to make that pass, but I've got to make up for it. Like, if you really felt like it was your fault, then you have to respond in a manner with which is I have to make up for this mistake. Even though it's not really a mistake, it's just something that happened. And so tough break for Obi Toppin. But man, like you've got to move on and you have to, help your team after that happens. Like you have to go score. You have to go rebound. You have to go win the title. That way you don't feel as bad. Because now you're feeling bad because your boy is hurt. And you're also feeling bad because you didn't play very well. So that was frustrating from him. Andrew Nembhard was okay last night. I thought that when Haliburton went down, I thought that he didn't have the ball enough. Like he went out and there was a lot more TJ McConnell, which is understandable. But I felt like they had McConnell do everything. And like, I love McConnell. Everyone that watches the Pacers loves that guy because everyone loves a short, white guy who can go get buckets. With that being said, when TJ McConnell has the basketball, the ball doesn't move as much. It just doesn't, especially with the way that the Thunder were defending off the ball. They're like, hey, TJ McConnell, if you want to run around for 20 seconds, that's totally fine with us. You can hit your little floaters and like, that's cool. Like, we don't think that you're going to match bucket for bucket with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because that's basically what the Thunder offense was too. It was give, SGA the ball and let's see what he's got. And he had a lot last night. I'm going to talk about him here at some point, maybe. I don't know. And, he couldn't. And I felt like if Nembhard had the basketball, it would have made things easier on everyone else. Just because he is a good creator. He had 6 assists last night. He only turned the ball over twice. That's the other thing. He's a really good decision maker. And like, I love McConnell. I thought he was good. That being said, Andrew Nembhard should have brought the ball up and played more point guard last night. I think that just would have helped the offense flow a little bit more than what it did, especially with the way that he was shooting the ball. Like he hit 2 really tough off the bounce threes. I thought that there was a slight mistake there, not allowing him to have the basketball more because he was getting in the lane. He was getting fouled. And in those McConnell minutes, it's like, is Andrew Nembhard even on the floor? It felt like he wasn't, and that's not a Nembhard thing. That's a TJ McConnell is bringing up the ball thing. And, that just makes it really, really tough. But, defensively, I thought he was good. Again, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he had 29 points. He had 12 assists. But he was 8 of 27 from the floor, and that might be like the best 8 of 27 performance I think I've ever seen from anybody. I thought Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was great last night. I thought he controlled every minute of the game he was on the floor. I thought he made the right play every time down. He set a playoff career high in assists with 12. He was 1 turnover away from being the second player in the history of the NBA Finals to have, 20 or more points, 5 or more rebounds, and 10 or more assists. The only guy to ever do that was Magic Johnson in 1987. And the first half, I thought he was outstanding. He had 16 points, 7 assists, and no turnovers. He was by far the best player on the floor last night. If Haliburton plays the whole time, I don't think that I'm saying that. And in the history of Game 7s, when you look at it, the team with the best player tends to win. And he was amazing last night. He made every right play, and the Pacers were going to struggle to beat the Thunder if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had double-digit assists, and he did last night, and that ended up being the difference. And the one really weird thing about this run for the Pacers, usually when you think back on the NBA playoffs and you think about the history of it, like you remember the team that won the whole thing. And I don't think that's going to be the case with this group. I'm going to talk about more of this after the interview with Jared Dubin. By the way, that's coming up here in about 7 minutes. After the interview, we're going to give away some We're going to give away some Holiday World and Splash and Safari tickets. They've got an awesome drone show and fireworks show going on to kind of celebrate the 4th of July now through August. So we're going to give away tickets to that after the Jared Dubin interview. So make sure you're tuned in and ready to go and call in to potentially win those tickets. Once again, that's coming up after the Jared Dubin interview. Today's show is brought to you by Holiday World and Splash and Safari. If you're sad after the Pacers lost last night, go to Holiday World. I promise you'll have a great time and you'll feel way better. Um, but I also think that 5 years from now, I'm very intrigued to see how people think about this NBA playoff run because Tyrese Haliburton was outstanding through the whole thing, and the Thunder were pretty rock steady. But there was never any big Thunder moment. Like there was never a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander moment. Maybe the Game 4 late run, but that's not what people are really going to remember about this series. And I think it points to how special this Pacers run is when people think back on this playoffs. They're not going to remember the team that won the whole thing. They're going to remember the Indiana Pacers and everything that Tyrese Haliburton did and all the crazy comebacks and just this consistent ability to defy the odds. That is what people will remember about this title run. Not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, not Jalen Williams, and the fact that he scored 40 in Game 5. No, they're going to remember the Pacers because of how just resilient and tough this group is. And I'm going to talk to Jared Dubin about that when we come back here in about 5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watching on X, maybe you're listening via the Indy Sports Ticket app. No matter how you're listening, it is greatly appreciated. Today's show is brought to you by Holiday World and Splash and Safari. If you're feeling sad after that loss last night and you just want to feel better, go to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. It will brighten your mood up immediately. If you want to go for free, we're going to give away tickets after this interview with the great Jared Dubin, who does as good a job as anybody else at covering the NBA. You can read all this stuff over at lastnightinbasketball.com. You can also listen to him via the Double Dribble podcast. What's going on, Jared? How are you, man?
I'm doing all right, man. How about you?
I'm okay. Let's just start with the thing that everyone's talking about. How did you feel? What was your reaction when Tyrese Haliburton went down last night?
I mean, I'd imagine the same as it was for everybody in Indiana and everybody else that's a basketball fan, like outside of the greater Oklahoma City area. I was just crushed, like we knew that this was a possibility, playing on a calf strain, coming back. It's a injury that typically knocks guys out for weeks, if not longer. We knew what the worst case scenario was. And I mean, the guy was absolutely on fire to start the game, just so aggressive in a way that always portends well for the Pacers offense throughout the rest of any game. Biggest game of his life, makes 3 threes in like 5.5 minutes. And then it was devastating. Like there's no words for it,
If he doesn't start that way, does it still feel as bad as it did?
Yeah, I mean, it's a superstar in his prime playing in the biggest game of his life. And whether he starts off, blazing hot from the outside or not, like this is the guy who's the best player on the team, who has had one of the best playoff runs that we've ever seen in terms of, the game winners and the comebacks and the assists and the lack of turnovers and just fueling this unbelievable team to watch throughout the entire playoffs. Like, I think no matter how he had started the game, it would have been just as devastating.
I agree. But man, like it felt like we were going to get his best performance of the playoffs. Now, look, the Thunder defense is really good. They could have made adjustments, after a timeout that kind of slowed him down. But how did you feel about his start? Because I feel like we were going to get a similar Knicks game 4 performance where he goes for 30 and 15 and 0 turnovers. How did you kind of feel? What did you think we were in for before he got hurt?
I'm not even sure I can put it into words. Like it looked like we were in for an all-time special performance. Like I can't remember who had it on Twitter during the game, but it was like there were only like 5 or 6 guys who had ever made 3+ threes in a game 7 of the NBA Finals, and he had made 3+ threes in the first 5 minutes of the game. Like the kind of stuff that it looked like we were potentially in store for was, potentially the stuff of legend if things had kept going the way they were going.
Joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NBA over at lastnightinbasketball.com, also the host of the Double Dribble podcast, which you can get wherever you listen to your podcast. He does a great job covering the NBA. And if I'm asking this question too early, please say, Jonathan, can we go on to the next thing? How does this change? Is there any... I've talked about this a little bit. I think that if you want to be like super happy guy who's just positive about everything, I think that this next season does provide some good opportunities for the Pacers to kind of figure out what they have with Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker. What do you think about the Pacers and what they kind of look like next season?
It's tough because even if you figure some things out about those guys, things change so dramatically if and when you get Haliburton back on the court. Nobody's role is going to be the same without him as it is when he's there. Like the dynamic of the way the team is able to play is going to be so wildly different when he's back than it is when he's out for, you would assume, like, I can't imagine any way that he's going to play next season. Like, it's is it good that guys get an opportunity to stretch themselves? Yeah, to a certain extent, but wouldn't it be so much better if they had the opportunity to play with Haliburton and get better in the roles that they're, quote unquote, supposed to be in, or the roles that they're going to play on this team in the future? To a certain extent, there's maybe opportunity for guys to outshine whatever role it looks like they might have, and maybe they turn into, assets for something down the road. But, you're missing a season of your best player's prime. You're missing a season or you're not missing a season of guys like Pascal Siakam and if Miles Turner, if he comes back, which I would think that he probably will, but who knows? There's a lot of money out there potentially. You might be missing a year of those guys when you're not necessarily contending for a championship. Like, I find it hard to believe that, or I find it hard to find silver linings in this situation.
It is really tough. And I think they're going to bring Miles Turner back probably somewhere around $30 million a year. I had someone ask me this morning, does the Haliburton injury impact any of the Miles Turner stuff? I don't think so, because he's 29. In 2 years, he'll be 31 when you feel like you can compete for titles again. I will say the center position for the Pacers throughout the playoffs has been a little rough. Miles Turner really struggled to shoot the ball in the finals. The backup center minutes in every round were just brutal. I think that you're a football guy, so I can use this analogy. I think center in the NBA is like running back in the NFL. There's really only like 3 or 4 every down running backs in the NFL who can carry that load. I really think there's only 3 or 4 do-it-all centers in the NBA, just with everything that these guys are asked to do. I think that the Pacers need to make a real upgrade at backup center. What do you kind of think about the idea of center by committee for the Pacers?
Yeah, I think Miles Turner is a level above center by committee. He's very good and obviously didn't shoot well in the playoffs or in the finals, but his defense on Chet Holmgren in particular was really good. Like, Chet shot under 40% from the field, under 20% from three during the finals. Turner was obviously a huge part of the run in the previous rounds too. Like, he's really good. I would try to bring him back. I'm with you on, to a certain extent, the comparison to running backs, just because I think it's easier to find like replacement level backup center play than it is at probably any other position. But it's also really glaring when you don't have a backup center, in the way it can be really glaring when you just can't run the ball at all on any level. But centers are also able to be made better by specifically their point guards than, in the same way that running backs are able to be made better by their offensive lines. And, can you find a $5 million center that can do the job of playing a backup center? Sure. But can you find that guy to do the job of being a starting center? Are you really going to cobble together, 3 of those guys to take up the 48 minutes where you're basically just trying to survive at a position for the entire game rather than trying to create any possible advantages? It's tough to live that way. So I don't know if I like going, full on, we're not going to have a real center. We're just going to cobble things together with a bunch of different guys. But, there is merit to throwing bodies at the position in the backup sense, which, to be fair to the Pacers, they did that this year, but 2 of the guys tore their Achilles, and one of them was a 10-day guy that they signed in the middle of March. And one of them was a guy that they traded for because the other 2 guys got hurt. They had a bunch of different backup centers this year. It's just that 2 of them got knocked out for the season. One of them was a guy who was available for not much on the trade market, and the guy that they traded or that they signed late in the year on a nothing contract got hurt in the playoffs also.
Yeah, joined by Jared Dubin of Last Night in Basketball.com, talking about the Pacers' loss last night to the Thunder and just next season and what everything is going to look like for this Pacers team going forward. I want to go back to the finals because I think that with the Haliburton injury, this isn't going to be discussed enough. I thought Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had the best 8 for 27 game I've ever seen. I thought he just controlled the game. I thought his playmaking was arguably the best I've seen it in the playoffs. He did set a career high in assists in a playoff game last night. I thought he was really good. What did you think of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's performance last night?
I'm in 100% agreement with you. The guy was phenomenal. He missed some shots that he usually makes. He missed some shots that were, maybe a little bit adventurous in terms of just how many times he took threes off the dribble, which is not usually his shot. But total control of the game in the palm of his hands the entire time, playmaking. He made a couple of Haliburton-style jump passes where I think it was Miles Turner hit a three to tie the game in the third quarter. And then on the next trip, Shea hit a step-back three on a switch. McConnell turns the ball over on the other end. Shea drives the lane and hits a jump pass to Chet on the wing for three. McConnell turns the ball over again. Shea drives the lane, hits a jump pass to J-Dub for three. All of a sudden, from tie game, it's Thunder up by 9 in the span of, a minute. And that sort of put the Thunder on their way to putting the game away. And, man, I mean, the guy was fantastic. You can't say enough about the way he controlled the game, the pace that he played with, the decisiveness that he played with off the dribble, and being willing to get off the ball in a way that we haven't always seen from him. Just a fantastic player playing one of the best games of his career, despite the shooting numbers in obviously the biggest game of his life.
Joined by Jared Dubin of lastnightbasketball.com talking about the NBA Finals. I'm with you. He was spectacular. You mentioned that third quarter stretch there. That to me is where the Pacers lost the game. They turned the ball over 8 times in that quarter. They also give up 7 offensive rebounds. I need to go back and double check this, but I'm 99% sure that 3 of the Thunder's 4 wins in this series came with the Pacers shooting a better field goal percentage than the Thunder. It happened again last night. Have you ever seen a team with this incredible ability to just out-possession their opponents the way that the Thunder have done all year and all playoffs long?
No, I mean, Owen Phillips, who was a former Knicks analytics guy who now runs a site called the F5, he had something out earlier about the turnover differential that Oklahoma City had throughout the playoffs. And I mean, it was just absolutely monstrous the way that they're able to get teams to give the ball away, or not even give the ball away. They just take it away from the other team. And they are obviously also one of the teams that takes care of the ball the best in the league. Also, the combination of those two things, it's really hard to beat this team when they are able to do that at the same time.
It is. And they're just really good. Like I saw people complaining about the officials, and that's what happens whenever your favorite team loses. But I thought last night, I didn't think it was an officials thing. I thought it was just the Pacers didn't have their best player. And when he doesn't play, they turn the ball over a little bit more. And and a little bit more turns into a lot of bit more whenever you play against this Thunder team. I am curious, you being a Knicks fan, the Eastern Conference just keeps getting worse. No Haliburton, no Lillard, no Tatum. What is kind of your perception of the Eastern Conference next year with all of these injuries that have happened?
It's going to be pretty bad.
Yes. I mean, what more needs to be said? I really I think right now, the 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference next year are probably going to be the Knicks, Magic, and Cleveland. I really like the Desmond Bane trade for Orlando. Do you think we're going to see another team in the Eastern Conference make any sort of move to try to compete next year?
Yeah, I mean, you can see Detroit doing something. You could see Miami is always supposedly trying to do something, but not actually willing to give anything up.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do, what Atlanta does. There are plenty of teams that could probably talk themselves into hey, there's nothing going on in this conference. Maybe we could get ourselves in the mix here.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see what that's going to be. Joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NBA over at lastnightbasketball.com. He also has an excellent podcast called the Double Dribble Podcast, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts. What about the Bucks? Because that's a team that I'm kind of interested in. It looks like they're going to keep Giannis. Is there a move out there for them that would make them a little more interesting than what they are now?
More interesting than what they are now? Maybe. A legitimate contender for the conference. I don't see how that happens. You've got a $50+ million dead weight on the books just in terms of actually being able to do something next year. I don't think you're really getting anything for, guys like Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton, like Brooke Lopez might not even be back. Like, it's really difficult to see the way that they significantly level up. Like, could they go and get a point guard somehow and make themselves a little bit more interesting? Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know necessarily who that is that takes them to a different level, but man, like considering how far away they were from the best teams in the conference this year, it's hard to see what that move could be. Like the big piece they had to make a move if they wanted to do something like that was Dame, and that's out of the question now.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, they do have Giannis, which I think, and maybe this is just me being reactionary to what we just saw in these playoffs. I feel like having the best player in a series, I say after the Thunder just won a series because they had the best player, it feels like that seems less and less important as players in the NBA get better. Like I think non-stars are the best we've ever seen in terms of like the quality. After watching these playoffs, do you feel like having the best player in a series is as important as it used to be?
It's an interesting framing of the question. I still think it's incredibly important.
Yes.
It's just also important, obviously, to have other really good players. Like you can't just have the best player in the series and that's it. Like you got to have multiple threats. Like everybody on the court has to be a live threat on offense, and everybody has to be able to at least survive on defense. Like having the best player is like a prerequisite for getting there. But once you do get there, you can't have guys that are going to be able to be taken advantage of on one end of the court or the other, or teams are too good at this point. They know how to exploit what your weaknesses are on both ends of the court, and they're going to do it. If you have a guy who, can't shoot or can't dribble or can't pass or can't play defense, like the other team is going to be good enough and smart enough to take advantage of that.
Joined by Jared Dubin, who covers the NBA over at lastnightbasketball.com. Go and subscribe to his Substack. It is absolutely excellent. He also has a podcast called the Double Dribble Podcast as well. I think Kevin Durant can still be the best player in a series. He obviously dealt to the Rockets yesterday. First and foremost, can we please ban trades during the NBA Finals? And secondly, what did you make of the Kevin Durant trade to the Rockets? Do you like it or not? How do you kind of feel about it?
Yes, please. Let's not have trades anymore during the NBA Finals. Although the Pacers did make a trade that is going to help them a lot, where they got their 2026 first-round pick back during the Finals. And if that had not been allowed, they might not have been able to get next year's first back, and things might be looking, a little bit less rosy for them going into the future than they are now. So that was good for them that they were able to still do that. As far as the Durant trade goes, I like it for Houston. I feel like it was a pretty low-cost move to get a guy who makes their team better. I am on the, kind of extreme low end of Jalen Green believers. This is a guy who basically has been good for a month in every season and not good otherwise. And it's really frustrating because the skill set that he has lends itself to like, this guy should be one of those guys who can be unstoppable all the time and just isn't like that a lot of the time. So it's very frustrating because he should be really, really good, but instead it's just like, you can talk yourself into him maybe being good eventually. We saw Houston's offense struggle a lot against the Warriors in the playoffs, to put it lightly. Just imagine if they had to go up against the Thunder or the Pacers with the pressure that they put on teams. Kevin Durant is one of the best salves ever for that kind of issue, just the way that he's able to create space and to work in space himself and create his own shot. Just the combination of size and shooting ability and shot creation ability is, unlike almost anything that we've ever seen. So dropping him into that ecosystem is going to do wonders for their offense. They're still going to be a really good defensive team. They still have Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, They've still got Fred VanVleet, who's a good defender in his own right, but he doesn't have to do all of the creation on offense anymore. They're going to be very good. They were very good this past season. Are they closer to the level of the Thunder? Sure. Are they actually close to the level of the Thunder? I don't think so. So it's at the same time, I really like it. And I'm also thinking, like, you still got a ways to go to compete with who you actually have to compete with.
Yeah, for me, it was a low risk, high reward move. Like, they don't need the 10th pick. Like, they've got Reed Shepherd, who I like. You know, he was the number 3 overall pick this last year. Like, he couldn't get on the floor. Cam Whitmore, a guy who intrigues me quite a bit. Like, he couldn't even get on the floor. So I don't feel like they really gave up much. And, you know, like, Kevin Durant is still really good. I think once it was pretty apparent that the Suns weren't going to be good as a team this year, people kind of checked out. Kevin Durant can still go score. And, you know, he's still a really good player. Last thing for you, Jared, and I will let you go. I know that Devin Booker says that he wants to be a Sun for forever. I'm not buying it, though. What is the likelihood of the Suns moving Devin Booker? Maybe not this offseason, but at some point, because I feel like if they really want to reset and do a real rebuild, they're actually going to get valuable things if they move Booker, whereas they obviously didn't get much after moving Durant.
Yeah, I mean, down the line, who knows? Like, I think it'll depend on what happens as they retool over the next couple of years. Like, if it's totally unsuccessful again, then, you know, you're definitely going to hear the rumor mill start up. Like, I can't see them doing it this off season. Like, Ishbia is, he's an interesting guy in the way that he runs that team. And he's also just like obsessed with Michigan. And, you know, I know Devin Booker went to Kentucky, but he is from Michigan. And Ishbia, anybody that was from Michigan State or from Michigan in general, the state, he just is obsessed with bringing them on and keeping them. So who knows how that affects things. But yeah, I mean, I can't see it. Like, I feel like it's more likely that Jalen Green doesn't stay on the team than it is that they trade Booker. This trade can't be completed until July 6th because of the salary cap rules. So they have plenty of time if they want to find a way to spin him off. Like, the idea that they're going to come into next season with Booker, Beal, and Green all on the same team just seems pretty unlikely to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were some stuff that comes out over the next couple weeks about them trying to find a way to spin him off to another team and maybe get something else.
Okay. Jared Dubin of Last Night in Basketball.com. Jared, I have had a blast having you on all NBA season long. It is so much better talking about this than talking about any like NFL training camp stuff. I know that you also cover the NFL over at CBSSports.com. Do you have anything coming out there anytime soon that people should go read?
Yeah, everything, man. Just read all of my stuff at CBS at lastnightbasketball.com. I had something earlier today at CBS on, you know, young players who could be in line for a bigger role this coming season. So that's something to look out for. And yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, man.
Thanks for having me.
That is Jared Dubin. Follow him on X at JA Dubin 5. Does a great job covering the NBA and the NFL. Like he said, go read all of his stuff. Does a great job, you know, writing. Just a very, very gifted writer. So go and check out all of his stuff. When we come back, here in about 4 minutes, more thoughts on Tyrese Haliburton probably tearing his Achilles last night.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watch it on X, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. Keep that app on. You can listen to the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3 there as well. And I just realized I forgot to call for callers to give away these Holiday World tickets. They're doing an awesome firework and drone show right now from now through August 3rd, just to kind of celebrate the 4th of July. So we're giving away tickets for that. Today's show is brought to you by Holiday World and Splash and Safari. If you're feeling pretty sad after that, Pacers lost last night, the Haliburton injury, and you just want to feel better, go to Holiday World and Splash and Safari, where you will have an absolute blast. And this was a really weird NBA playoff run. And because when you think back throughout the history of the NBA, and you think about playoff runs, and you think about teams that win titles, you think about the team that won the title. For example, if I said, hey, what do you remember about the 1998 NBA playoffs? You say, oh, I remember Michael Jordan. And then I would say, anything specific? And you would say, oh, when he, pushed off a little bit, that left hand, and he brought it back, and he hit the jumper from just beyond the foul line, and he held the follow through. That is what you would bring up. If I said, hey, what do you remember about the 2014 NBA Finals? You say, oh, I remember the Miami Heat. Rebound, Bosh, kick out to Allen, bang. That's what you would say that you remember. And if we just went through all of history and I asked you, what do you remember about these NBA playoffs? You would probably say something about the team that won the whole thing. And what makes the 2025 NBA playoffs, to me, so interesting is the fact that is not the case. I think that 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, someone says, hey, what do you remember about the 2025 NBA playoffs? And I think that this goes for everyone in Indiana and outside of Indiana, unless you're in Oklahoma. Your response is going to be something like, oh, Tyrese Haliburton. This the best clutch run we've ever seen in the playoffs. I believe that those will be the first words uttered out of people's mouths. They'll say, oh, man, if they're talking to a 7-year-old, oh, dude, if only you could have been there. Game 5 against the Bucks, the Pacers are down 8 with 40 seconds left. And they go on this insane run. They go on an 8-0 run in the final 40 seconds, and it goes to overtime. And then Tyrese Haliburton crosses up Giannis Antetokounmpo, a former Defensive Player of the Year, and he gets to the rim, and he finished a layup to cap it off. It was amazing. If only you could have been there. Oh, and then in the second round, they steal game 1 against the 64-win Cleveland Cavaliers, by the numbers, the second best offense ever. And then game 2, the Cavaliers, they're up by 8 or whatever. And then the Pacers did it again. Tyrese Haliburton missed this free throw, and he got the offensive rebound, and then he brought it out, and he had a tough step back 3 over Ty Jerome, and they went up 2-0, and they ended up beating the 64-win Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games. It was amazing. And then they played the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they had this other crazy game where in game 1, Aaron Nesmith got hot and hit 8 threes in the second half, and 6 of them came in the fourth quarter. And then Tyrese Haliburton hit this incredible shot where he drove into the lane and realized he wasn't going to be able to score, so he sprinted back out to the perimeter, and he turned around and he took this fall away, what we thought was a 3, but his toe was on the line, and it hit the heel of the rim, and it went up in the air, and then it fell through. No, it was just amazing. And then the Pacers won that game in overtime. And then they matched up against this juggernaut of an Oklahoma City Thunder team. And Tyrese Haliburton hit another game winner after another comeback in the fourth quarter of game 1 on the road. And all of a sudden, everyone believed. That is what people are going to talk about when they talk about the 2025 NBA playoffs. That is it. And then they're going to talk about the tragedy that happened at the 4-minute and 55-second mark in the first quarter. Tyrese Haliburton tears his Achilles. When people talk about this NBA playoff run 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they're not going to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, even though they just put together one of the 5 best seasons in the history of the NBA. They went 84-21. They tied the 95-96 Bulls for the third most wins in a season when you combine the regular season and postseason. That's incredible. But we're not going to remember it because of how just incredible this Pacers run and this Tyrese Haliburton run was. And it felt like we were going to get the pinnacle of it last night because he comes out and he makes 3 threes in the first 7 minutes. And the dude's hot and he's yelling at the crowd, saying words I can't say on the radio. And he's getting into the lane and he's kicking it out to shooters. And sadly, a lot of guys didn't make shots early in that game for the Pacers. Tyrese Haliburton was really the only one. He was the only guy who matched what I expected. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I thought he'd come out and do something similar. He didn't. Tyrese Haliburton, though, like you just knew that he was going to come out and be awesome last night because he's Tyrese Haliburton, and that's just what he does. He rises to the occasion time and time again. And when people think back on the 2025 NBA playoffs, that is what will be remembered. They are going to remember Tyrese Haliburton and his ability to rise to the occasion and to meet the moment time and time again. Richard Jefferson said something really cheesy after the first Haliburton game winner in game 1. He said something like, he doesn't rise to the moment. He is the moment, whatever that means. But I get it. I mean, he's on a very short list, Tyrese Haliburton is, of players that when the ball comes off his hand in a big spot, he's on a very short list of guys that you feel like it's going to go in. I think Steph Curry's on that list. I think Michael Jordan's on that list. That might be it. And Tyrese Haliburton. That's not it. I think Larry Bird's on that list as well. I'm not going to go through that list right now, but that might be a good fun list Friday. We'll see. Anyway, but yeah, like I just, it's so sad right now. And I just remember feeling sad after Haliburton went down last night. And I'm going to play the audio of Coach Carlisle talking about Haliburton when we come back here in about 4 minutes. But I feel sad right now. But I do think that in a few months, a year, 2 years, we're going to think about this Pacers team. And there's going to be a lot of smiles that come along with those memories. And if you want more smiles and more memories, you should go to Holiday World, and you're going to have the opportunity to do it. Get your phone out. 317-228-1430 is the number. Call that number right now for your chance to win tickets to Holiday World. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to give them to you. We're going to mail them out to you. 317-228-1430. They're doing an awesome firework and laser drone show right now through August 3rd. You don't want to miss it. 317-228-1430 for your chance to win those Holiday World tickets. Someone's calling in. Let's go. We got a winner already. I will pick that up. Stay on the line. We'll be right back here in about 4 minutes.
Progressive knows RV owners like to travel at a nice, relaxing pace. Just like this commercial. They're not rushing to a departure gate at the airport because they depart from their driveway. And they can relax even more knowing they're protected by Progressive. Now here comes the fast part. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Every success you've had began with a great opportunity. Now there's another one. Last aid year, University of Maryland Global Campus awarded over $21 million in scholarships to qualified students, including community college students, service members, veterans, and working adults. Now is the time to move your career forward with an online and accredited skills-based education. Learn more at umgc.edu. Certified to operate in Virginia by Chef.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X, _ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. You can hear the Dan Dockett Show on that app as well. And yeah, I just appreciate you tuning in. Shout out to Joe Scott, our winner of the Holiday World tickets today. The real Jonathan Smith Show is sponsored by Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Go there, make memories. It'll help you forget about that Pacers loss last night, and you'll have a great time while you are there. Speaking of the Pacers loss, Tyrese Haliburton goes down with the Achilles injury. It's just brutal. When it happened, I think everyone felt the exact same way. I think even people in the building felt the same way of like, oh, man, get up, man. Let's, and he wasn't going to get up, but it's just brutal. Just a brutal feeling. Here's Coach Carlisle after the game talking about the Tyrese Haliburton injury.
What happened with Tyrese is just all of our hearts dropped, but he will be back. I don't have any medical information about what may or may not have happened, but he'll be back in time. And, I believe he'll make a full recovery. So he authored one of the great individual playoff runs in the history of the NBA with dramatic play after dramatic play. It was just something that no one's ever seen. And did it as one of 17. That's the beautiful thing about him. As great a player as he is, it's always a team thing. And so our hearts go out to him. But so proud of everyone. And
Coach Carlisle right there talking about Tyrese Haliburton and the injury and just how gut-wrenching it was. He goes down, and you just feel terrible. You just do. And he's going to miss all of next year as well. And the game just felt weird. It just felt like hazy. Felt like everyone was just kind of going through the motions with the exception of Aaron Nesmith, who always plays balls to the wall. It's great. I love the way that guy rebounds. Anyway. The energy just got sucked out of the building after it happened. And it kind of felt like the Pacers' chances, they didn't go out the window because this Pacers team is really tough. You just knew that what was going to be a tough game to win just got significantly tougher. And, you've got, guys really doing their best. And I think we saw two things last night. We saw why the Pacers need Tyrese Haliburton. Everyone knows that they need him. But last night, we saw why. His ability to he just creates space, and his ability to read and react and kind of know what the defense is going to do before it happens. It's a very valuable thing to have, especially in your point guard, a guy who's going to make a lot of decisions against an Oklahoma City Thunder defense that forces more turnovers than any other team in the league. And the reason why the Pacers turned the basketball over 23 times last night, in part, is because their best decision maker got hurt and he didn't get to finish the game. And it's brutal. It sucked. I appreciate the effort from the guys. TJ McConnell had turnovers that drove me crazy. They did. The one where he's running up the middle of the floor and you see Lou Dort coming. And it's yeah, this is going to be a turnover. You knew it before TJ McConnell crossed half court. And sure enough, Lou Dort catches him from behind, pokes it loose. We're going the other way. And I'm pretty sure that the Thunder scored off of that turnover. But man, that dude played hard. And you got Mathurin in the fourth quarter when the game kind of feels like it's over. All of a sudden, the Pacers are down by 12. And it's Mathurin going to the rim and getting fouled and trying to play through contact and running in transition and going 10 of 10 from the foul line. He had 24 points last night. He was the Pacers' leading scorer. And just the heart and the resiliency was so clearly there. And that has been the most enjoyable thing to watch from the Pacers during this run. Just the constant energy, the constant effort, their ability to just keep playing. No matter what's happening, no matter if they're up, if they're down, they're at home, they're on the road, they just keep playing. The ability of the Pacers to be the same team everywhere. I haven't looked into this, but I would be willing to bet that this is true. They probably shot the ball better at home, but I bet that the change isn't as drastic as it is for the Thunder. When they go on the road, they are clearly not as good as when they're at home. And when you watch the Pacers, it doesn't feel that way. I feel like they can win anywhere on any given night. And the fact that Tyrese Haliburton goes down and you're the Pacers can still win speaks to the depth and the talent that's on this team and the resiliency. But at the same time, we saw some weaknesses from the Pacers last night. We saw why 15 minutes of TJ McConnell is about all that we get. Because once he goes over that, he's a guy who dribbles the ball a lot. He didn't keep it moving a ton. He turned the ball over a little bit. And the third quarter is really what showed it. The Pacers lost that game last night because of the third quarter. They turned the basketball over 8 times in the third quarter, and they gave up 7 offensive rebounds. It's 15 extra possessions. Also, the Thunder scored 18 points off of those turnovers. That's where the game was lost last night. They're up 1 going into the break, and they're all excited. The sideline reporter, I'm blanking on her name. She, comes out. She's got this report of the Pacers were yelling on the way to the locker room, like, oh, we can do this. We can beat these guys, all that kind of stuff. And that's a great feel-good story. But then the third quarter starts, and you just know that the Thunder are going to come out throwing hellacious punches. Like, they're coming out swinging. And the Pacers quite simply couldn't withstand that early third quarter burst where they're turning them over. They're grabbing offensive rebounds. Lou Dort is doing Lou Dort things. He's fouling through all of it, but none of it's being called. And while all that's going on, the Oklahoma City Thunder just continued to do their thing. They didn't commit a turnover in the third quarter. And this is a testament to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And I have talked a lot about the Pacers. I haven't talked about the Thunder much today. But I do want to acknowledge the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was awesome last night. I was so impressed with his ability to turn the basketball over 8 times in Game 6. He turned it over 8 times. Tied a career high, regular season or playoffs. And then he comes out in Game 7, and he looked so incredibly prepared. He did. He made every right read. He didn't shoot the ball great. Don't care. He controlled that basketball game. He made the right read time and time again. And he had 12 assists because of it. He had 12 assists on a night where the Thunder only shot 27% from 3. They were 11 of 40 from downtown. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, despite a bad shooting night from Thunder role players, was still able to help manufacture points through his passing. He was by far the best player on the court last night. And in the history of Game 7s, the team with the best player tends to win. He was amazing. He made every right play. And the Pacers were always going to struggle to beat the Thunder if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored, which he had 27, and also had double-digit assists. And it brings us back to Tyrese Haliburton. The thing that stings the most about the injury last night, it's not just the fact that the Pacers lost. It's not just the fact that he's going to be out all year next year. It's also that he was probably going to be the best player on the court last night. The way he started, the way he did everything, there was an extra bounce. There was, you could just tell. Great players, you can just tell the nights where they have it. Great players, they get their averages. It happens, Kevin Durant next year on the Rockets, he's going to average 25 points, and he's going to be pretty efficient, right? The question for them is, can Kevin Durant be, can he go get you 30 on a night when you really need it? And last night was a night where the Pacers were going to need for Haliburton to be awesome. And you could just tell he was going to be. You could just tell. Getting into the lane, spraying it out to shooters, looking for his shot at a super aggressive level. He took 5 shots in 7 minutes. Tyrese Haliburton never takes 5 shots in 7 minutes. 4 of them were threes, which if you listen to the show long enough, I'm not the biggest fan of that. I like when he gets to the lane, but he was getting to the lane, so I didn't mind it. And all the 3-pointers that he took were open. And he's getting to his spots, and he's lacing them from the left side, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but up until Game 6, Tyrese Haliburton had not made a shot from the left side of the floor. All 3 threes that he made were from the left wing. So I'm sitting at home, I'm like, oh man, we are about to get the crown jewel of Tyrese Haliburton performances in these playoffs in Game 7 of the freaking NBA Finals. And he blows the Achilles. And it sucks. And it's really tough. If you're a Pacer fan, you're going to be thinking about this game for a long time. And every time you think about it, man, you're going to think about this what if. Because he was so good. What if he just plays the first half? and he stays hot, and he goes into the break, and he's got like 15 points and 4 assists, and then he doesn't play in the second half. Like, do the Pacers win that game? Maybe. He was so set up to be so incredible, and then he gets hurt. And credit to Nembhard and the rest of the Pacers, they just kind of stayed in it, and they kept working, and they kept figuring it out because the Pacers are an elite problem-solving team. In the first half they were, in the second half they weren't. And just a tough way for the Pacers season to end in the finals with their best player getting hurt. With that being said, Pacers have the guy. Really tough to find a silver lining, but Tyrese Haliburton is going to be back. I don't think that his play style will be hurt too much by the injury. Like, there are some players that when they get hurt, the type of injury, is really going to impact them. For example, like when Derrick Rose tears his ACL in 2011 or 2010, whatever year that was. Like, you just knew that he wasn't going to come back the same because he's a highly explosive player. And, when knee injuries happen to highly explosive players, they aren't the same. With Haliburton, that's not his superpower. His superpower isn't being super athletic or super quick. His superpower is the ability to read and react and know what defenses are going to do. That is an ability that he will still have when he comes back. But we'll see what he looks like in 2 years when he's suiting up again. I hope he's all right. And what a season. What a season. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way next. It's a Monday, which means Power Hour, and hopefully Todd Leary. We will see. The Dan Dockett Show comes your way when we come back here in about 5 minutes. Peace.